Hi, good morning to you all. I thought I would come on today and talk about the Puff Daddy trial that's due to start today. I have a superseding indictment that I could do a reading out today. I'm not sure if everyone's interested in that. I just want to talk a bit about the Idaho case. I was going through the motion on, I think it was Friday, and I noticed the mention of a firearm, which surprised me because I never knew that there was any indication of a firearm found in the home or a firearm used. But what's really stood out, that a firearm was used to strike Kaylee. Possibly Kaylee was murdered differently than the rest. She was stricken to the point where apparently it broke her nose and things. And I feel it was possibly a gun that did that, because it mentions in the documents that a firearm explanation or something mentioned, and that was a firearm enhancement, right, was mentioned. And I looked it up, what a firearm enhancement means. I'm sorry. I'll try and put this up. So, right, okay. I don't know how to sort of do Google. Okay, I'm just going to go to that a minute. No, it's not going to. I just want to go back to Google. Oh. Never mind. So what I mean is, what it told me anyway is that a firearm enhancement means a firearm was used at the scene of the crime. Now, there was a gun found in his home. I am on a live today, and if you wish, and if you don't believe me, I could put all the documentation up. I've also put the motion up and read it out, and it does mention the firearm enhancement. The reason it's important is due to the penalty charge of the death penalty, and it could affect his trial. See, if he used a firearm, it could be possible going back and further down sentence. I'm not sure why, but that's what they also need to figure out at trial. He's been getting his way a lot, Bryan Kohberger, wanting, the people out there to think he's innocent. A lot of people out there are making these stories up, putting these flash videos up because they know that gets views. I wish people would share my video. Please share my videos. Please allow the truth to be heard, because if a lot of people are going around making stories up all the time and ending up with a big crowd of people watching them, they're going to believe every word they say. Now, you might not realise how much of an impact that has on a family struggling with being victims of a crime like that. Also, the people that were in the house were sort of targets then for people on the internet to make up stories about, which, you know, your common sense will tell you that these girls were victims. You know, they just didn't get killed. You know, I have a feeling that Kaylee was the target as well. Just the way the death scene, the death is, she had extensive injuries. I haven't read the report. I'll take people's word for that on that until I get to the trial, till I hear of the trial. But I just want people to realise that that's a broken-hearted father on the TV. Go and watch the latest interview with him. He talks about the stuff he can't talk about. But the thing he did mention most, it was that his daughter Kaylee was struck by an object like a gun, possibly outright. He might killed her. Don't know, because a gun's quite, you know, the weight behind an object like that. Sorry to do that. It's at such a ferocity. It could possibly have killed her outright. You know, so I'm sorry, I can't see my eyes out, right? So I'm not sure what everybody else feels about that out there and what everybody else has experienced about that story out there, or if you don't follow the story at all. Another housekeeping matter, the Rex Heuemann murdering document. I'll try my best to get some in this week and do an episode this week, a 3-hour one on it, because I have been put off, because every time I've put it up, the paperwork hasn't come on the internet with it. See, I'm one of them. If I see the documentation, I then realise it's the truth. When I don't see it, I don't believe it. You know, I've realised that me doing this has rubbed certain people up the wrong way, you know, because it's me putting boring documents out. Yeah, it is boring, putting documents out and not making salacious content and speculation. That's not what I suppose that's where channels make their money, I suppose, right? I don't want to earn one penny lying about anything. And that's me, you know. Another housekeeping rule, I got a lovely comment saying that, oh, why don't you paint a Norwegian kitty? Right? Well, I will. I'll go for it. I'm going to paint it as a cat for the channel as our little mascot. Why not? It's the first animal that someone's mentioned. I have a cat here. She's asleep. And she's a beautiful baby. Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are, baby. That's enough of me. So I'm going to start today just reading off. I mean, if you have a personal preference of what content you wish to watch, please let me know. I'll be happy to do it. I have to take into consideration the time period I have to each thing. At the moment, with the Puff Daddy trial coming up, there's quite a few coming up, isn't there? That it would be good to go through this superseding indictment. Now, when I do this, I'm afraid I can't see the chat. So, if you don't mind and understand that I can't see you I hope you can see me though. So I'll get it up. Okay, I haven't got it up here. I haven't got my files. Okay. Let me see if you can see it. No, I don't want that. Okay. This is what I want to share to you. All right, now this is a brand new document. As you see from the date at the top, it's the 3rd of April this come out. And this is the superseding indictments of Puff Daddy. You call what you like, I don't care. So I'm going to read it out. I'm going to. Okay, I've lost it. A minute. Just give me a minute. That's my daughter's chin, by the way. It's not mine. This is getting worse. Okay. Right. Okay. Let's see. I just want you to have a bigger screen. No. Okay. I'm going to put some music on for the background. I won't be able to see you guys. You want to edit me, do you know? Okay, that's fine. It's funny how little interaction I do get, but how vital this information is. It's not like I'm getting documents and not telling you what type of documents we got, or that type of stuff. I'm not doing that, Anyway, I'm going to come back and read it in a minute. And what we know about Puff Daddy so far is that he had a civil case. Hang on, sorry. I'm going to heat my coffee up first, yeah? got all my blankets downstairs at the minute. It's very cold this morning. I get up very early, too early. So there's the superseding indictment, count 1, the racketeering conspiracy. We'll go through those first. The defendant abused, threatened, and everything coerced to fulfill his pleasures. We know that. To do so, Combs relied on his employees, his resources, his influence, and multifaceted business empire that he led and controlled in creating a criminal enterprise, basically, whose members and associates engaged in and attempted to engage in, among the other crimes, sex trafficking, forced labour, kidnapping and arson, bribery and obstruction of justice. Sorry, Gertie. Sean Coates has many businesses. He's got businesses in Los Angeles, Manhattan, to name but a few, Now let's have a read of this. Also, the offences, the charges are going to be from 2004 onwards. At times, Coates was acting as his director. See, I get the impression there's all this going on, but he's one of many. You get that impression, like everyone knew what the scheme was about, what it was about, how he got his kicks and giggles. People didn't seem to care. On one occasion in Los Angeles hotel in March 2016, which was captured on video and later publicly reported, Combs kicked and dragged and threw a vase at a woman as she was attempting to leave. And he bribed the hotel staff, paid the hotel staff off, but then the footage got released again. He asked employees to cover up for the abuse he gives to Cassandra, he involved everyone. I do believe as well that the book is correct as well. I don't know where it's come from, but it could have been a diary of Kim Porter's, but it just rings true, It doesn't feel like anyone from his empire has been held to account, only Diddy, which surprises me, because we know how many women have had the same MO. Have been, spiked, forced to stay days with this man. I've read a few civil complaints out on my site if you want to go and have a look, but what I've got to say about the civil complaints is that you don't know which ones are true, which ones aren't, which is a shame. And that was because of certain people on YouTube not making it easy for victims to get compensated, because when you're faking something like that, you have to consider every woman that you know is out there who's been hurt like that. You're betraying all that. You're betraying women. Sean Combs, known and unknown, participated in unlawful activities related to the conduct of the Combs enterprise. The first individuals included certain Comb members, business employees such as members of Comb security, household staff, personal assistants and high-ranking supervisors, as well as close associates at Combs. And we've went through basically what his empire is about. You know, how it says here, how he projecting, the promoting and the enhancing the power, how he holds that against them, how like he'd affect people's reputation and their brands, how he took advantage of women in Macy's department store even, you know, read that one case out. I actually, some of them I really believe, you know, most of them I do, but some to a certain extent I do, but then I cut off, you know, because I've watched them make seriously fabricated content for purpose of entertainment, and it's not good. It's not good using victims' abuse as a way of getting your money, you know, getting a bag. Preserving and protecting and promoting, and yeah. He has a very, very peculiar way with women. He exploits the woman he with. He shares her, and then he just abuses them, you know. Makes them have sex with other women. Securing absolute loyalty from members of the Combs enterprise, including through acts of violence and threat, and members and associates, including Combs, from detection and prosecution by law and enforcement authorities through acts of intimidation, manipulation, bribery, and threats, and retaliation. Like, people sort of have died and have been killed off. His manager recently died, you know, people are dying around him. He's killing them off, basically. Yeah, he should get life, you know. Means and method. I mean, there's a lot enrolled in this business. You know, I mean, giving sex workers IV fluids to stay awake for days, things like that isn't normal behaviour from a record producer. You're not being. You've got to have a certain level, high rank and respect for yourself. But with this, he manipulated it all. He's vindictive with everyone, you know. He'd make them, you know, pay sex workers off, you know, bribe people, you know, to keep quiet, you know. He gave one person an STD, he paid him £5 million to keep quiet, you know. It's that type of thing going on. And it surprises me how loyal people are to people like this, you know, the loyalty. So, yeah, stop sharing for a minute and come in. So what do everyone else think in the chat? Yeah, there's no one in the chat. Okay, there's no one in my chat. That's fine. I don't know if anyone's got my message, but I'm streaming. Yeah. I see that, like, that people are just keeping away from me just out of blind loyalty to other channels. And really, you're just stopping yourself from finding accurate information out. So there we go. I'm going to talk about the death penalty case now with Kohberger. Okay. Right. This is a 33-page document for a speedy to decline the speedy trial. I'm not sure if this is from the States in district courts of secondary system. Yeah, it's from his side, and they want to strike the death penalty on grounds of a state speedy trial preventing access. So they're basically blackmailing the judge by saying, well, if you want a speedy trial, strike the death sentence off, which I don't work that way, does it? I'm not sure. I don't think it's right to even request that. But, yeah, I'm just grateful. Like the father says, there's a different judge now. So he can't get away with all of that, trying to fight this. He's trying to be clever, and he's not, He's a little bit of a pussy using a solicitor for everything as well, considering he's such an expert in crime. Idaho requires all criminal defendants to be brought to trial in 6 months from the arraignment on the indictment pursuant to the statute of its constitution. In Idaho, the right to a speedy trial is defined by, and it gives a number, as it was at the time of the adoption of the Constitution. The Idaho Constitution guarantees a speedy trial, except where there is a good cause for a delay or a request for postponement came from the defendants. I wonder what good reason he's going to put. Idaho Constitution requires a fixed amount of time. He's had plenty of time, hasn't he? Constitutes an undue delay. This court should adopt the 6-month line adoption by our legislator. So it should be coming. I think he's coming out to trial soon. Defendants in Idaho can never request additional time without losing his right to a speedy trial. Well, yeah. Well, why would you want additional time and a speedy trial? A capital case cannot be prepared in 10 months. Idaho cannot force a defendant to choose between his rights. A procedural history. On the 13th of 2022, law enforcement found the bodies of Madison Mogan, Kaylee Gong-Reeves, Alexander Canodles, and Ethan Chaplin. On the December 30th of 22, law enforcement arrested Mr. Kohberger at his parents' home in Pennsylvania. Mr. Kohberger, current counsel, filed for a limited appearance the same day. His first appearance in court in Idaho was the 5th of January 2023. On the 12th of January 2023, Mr. Kohberger filed notice of appearance, request for a timely preliminary hearing, motion for bail reduction, and notice of hearing, which contained a demand for a speedy trial pursuant to the 6th and 4th Amendments to the United States Constitution. While Mr. Kohberger prepared for a preliminary hearing, the state means a grand jury on the 12th of May. Okay. For 2023. In the indictment, Mr. Kohberger on 4 charges of murder in the first degree and a count of burglary. This caused arraignment Mr. Kohberger on May 22nd, 2023. Pursuant to Mr. Kohberger's right to a speedy trial, this court sets Mr. Kohberger's jury for trial on October 2023, a mere 10 months from his arrest. On August 2023, Mr. Kohberger waived his right to a speedy trial in order to secure his right to an effective assistant counsel. Okay. What could that have meant? Yeah, so it is a manipulative move on their part because they know that the moment that it could go where they don't have enough time to manipulate the jury about his innocence. Yeah. That's what this indicates to me. Idaho requires all criminal defendants. They're saying that as if there's more to be brought to trial. Okay. Previously, there was not a fixed rule for determining good cause for a delay. Well, the firearm is a good reason because that makes the difference between a capital life imprisonment and death penalty. Okay, I'm just going to think about this. See, in law in England, we don't have the death penalty, and what used to happen in a case. I worked in finance in law, right? I came across documents like this, so I can read and understand to a point. And my reading out's not that great, but it's waking my mind up to it has the same principles. Right is right and wrong is wrong. You know, if it's proven that one of them was hit with an object, it's like you've went in for that. You've went for that reason to do that day. It's hard to explain. Where a gun is, where a knife is a frenzy, you know. It's like you were determined to kill, you know. I do wonder why he had that fixation. I mean, this is the problem with online. People start to think they know people when they don't. Start to make excuses to bump into them when they shouldn't. You know, you imagine this girl probably brushed him off a few times and she's probably not even noticed it, you know. You know, just like bumping into him and he's probably been staring at her and she's brushed it off, that type of thing. That's what's terrifying. He is Ted Bundy in that film, because Ted Bundy went all out. If there was like a piece of wood lying around, he'd hit them with that. Mutilate with them. Just crazy stuff. And I feel that that's what level he is on. Anyone who believes he's innocent, you need to read these. When the defendant who invokes their statutory speedy trial right, it is not brought to trial within 6 months and shows that the trial was not postponed at his request, the burden then shifts to the state to demonstrate good cause for the delay. I don't understand why it comes to the state to do that. I mean, he's waving his rights away, or really what's happening here, the cause, and maybe she's writing whatever she wants here. She's telling us that, oh, well, she's contradicting what she's saying. If he striked his right for a speedy trial, right? But now the state are needing to prove the reason for the delay, and what reason it could be is the gun. It keeps pointing back to that. They can't get around that, but they're trying to. I mean, she mentions it only twice in that document, which I'm going to bring out again. Just to make people aware, because there's a lot of hearsay going around, and what the cause is just trying to do is to demonstrate a good enough cause to to delay the trial. I mean, it's just undue delay on the state's part, possibly due to the coroner and other factors, evidence. If there was a prospect of a different injury on somebody else, it does like qualify for a death penalty. This is what I've read up about anyway. I mean, they took the time, basically what they're saying here, they took the time to sign it, and then she's blaming the court. It's not really good etiquette the way she's speaking as well, because she's sort of blaming the court for decisions she's made, The court arrives at a conclusion despite the fact that it's completely silent regarding whether a warrant needs a signature. The reason the court was able to find constitutional violation in this case was by acknowledging that the statutes require a signature. Because it required a signature on the warrants predated the Idaho Constitution, they create a substantive right which existed prior to the adoption of the state's constitution. The Supreme Court found the defendant was entitled to constitutional relief for a violation. Knock and announce, after finding the right contained, the statute were long standing as common law and deeply rooted in our heritage. It's more law talk. This one bit may make sense to us. The right of speedy trial was certainly well known to the framers of our Constitution. Had been placed for nearly 3 years prior to the Constitution's. Yeah, and they're holding it as a different county now, Boise, in Idaho. This is just talking about what happens in the courts of Idaho, the different proceeds, the different ways they do it. Idaho Constitution guarantees speedy trial, except where there is good cause for a delay, or the request for postponement came from the defendant. Okay. I think the judge will know all that, won't he? Our state's speedy trial right must be as they were when the Constitution was adopted. Not only is it clear from Clark and other authorities that the courts should first look to the understanding of the framers when considering the meaning of our constitutional rights, but even the Idaho Supreme Court had held that our constitutional right to a speedy trial was defined by, and it gives numbers and a code, before Barker test was adopted. Okay, however, the court held Clark that the good cause test was not an exact equivalent to the Barker test. Therefore, the court should hold that Lindsay and its progeny were wrongly decided in that they did not properly consider by starting from the understanding of our framers. I'm just going to get to the bit where it gets into detail, but I'm not going to go through law quotes and law, why the law is the way the law is. I just want to see what exactly is going to happen. Hearers argued both the history terms of the court at the time of the adoption of our Constitution would permit this court to find the form. Framers did not wish for people to languish in jail awaiting trial. The courts were not to have fewer than 2 term, meaning that stretched those terms to their limits. He's been in prison a little too long before the trial, but that's due to her, really, her choosing. She needs to go over more details, more data. It's never ending, and really, it's quite an obvious case, of him. It's a bit like the Richard Allen one. Deny. I don't care about the psychological effect on them, couldn't care less. Since 1975, no defendant needs to worry that the judge will come unavailable, leaving them detained essentially incommunicado. All saying the weight of imprisonment and awaiting trial cannot be made much easier by having a judge available who does not hear your case through, though you ask him or her to. To some extent, the feeling of begging for one's freedom and having it fall on deaf ears as same drags on might be worse in it. Come on now. Just going through little situations or through law. We get it. He's in prison. Okay. Saying also, similarly here, the Idaho framers intended to fixed line for when a defendant had to wait long in jail. She's talking hypothetically here. A capital case cannot be prepared in 10 months. Within this 6 months to trial as a backdrop, modern death penalty work becomes impossible. Undersigned counsel is unavailable to fulfill the requirements of the ABA guidelines for the appointment and performance of the defense counsel in the death penalty proceedings, and supplementary guidelines for mitigation function of defense teams in the death penalty cases, which have been adopted by Idaho and accepted by U.S. Supreme Court as a defining standard for the accepted representation in capital cases. Public Defense Commission Capital Defense Attorney Qualifications and Roster. And then she posts a little link there. But you gotta go to a special judge for a death penalty case? I'm sure you would. Death penalty cases must be considered differently compared to the non-death penalty case. They must be subjected to heightened constitutional scrutiny. Of course, it's a death penalty, but simply so long as Mr. Kohberger's execution is a possible result in this case, the state of Idaho must take basic, if not extraordinary measures to protect the constitutional rights. Unquestionably, the prosecution intent to seek the death penalty ratchets up the demand on defence counsel. Nowhere are there these demands more clearly enunciated. And it says in a footnote, the American Bar Association, ABA stands for, enunciated than in the ABA guidelines for appointments of performers of defence counsel in the death penalty proceedings. Defence counsel incurs the immediate obligation to conduct a thorough investigation at every stage of the case, and this duty is intensified, as are many duties, by the unique nature of the death penalty, as has been emphasised by recent statutory changes, and is broadened by the bifurcation of capital trials. Footnotes omitted. The breadth and scope of this duty is such that it routinely results in finding of ineffective assistance after the fact. And after all sides have sunk enormously cost, collecting inadequate investigation cases. But I don't think he's innocent. Just don't. I think the evidence will prove that as well. He has a knife with his DNA on. You know, he walks around everywhere with gloves on, I believe. I wouldn't be surprised if he's killed others. Just wouldn't. He's too old. He seems very comfortable with killing 4 people, and he did it pretty well. You know, so it makes me think he's done it before. Abuse, attacking 4 people would make you physically sick, the smell and everything. You know, I'm not going to get into graphic detail, but he didn't throw up or nothing. The duty to investigate the causes of includes enormous issues related to the guilt phase of homicide charges. We talked about this in the last 2. So if you want to go back and have a look at that and come back to here, it'll probably help you. Phase of homicide charges carrying the possibility of a capital punishment, witness interviews, forensic analysis, crime scene investigation, charging documents, police conduct, co-defendants, alibi, etc. However, the penalty phase alone can necessitate an even wider investigation with virtually limitless avenues for the mitigation of evidence, all of which must be pursued. The penalty phase investigation requires an extensive and generally unparalleled look into the defendant's personal and family history, beginning with the moment of conception. I can't remember if they did that with Chad Daybell. Yeah, these little footnotes as well. This one's important. The medical history, including hospitalizations, mental and physical illnesses or injury, alcohol and drug use, prenatal and birth trauma, malnutrition, development delays, any neurological damage, family and social history, including physical sexual and emotional abuse. It goes into it all, you know. Hang on, I'll just be a second. I'm sorry about that, I needed a coffee. I just need the coffee and my glasses because I really can't see. My eyes are sore today. I read a lot. Yeah. Family history, mental illness, cognitive impairment, substance abuse, domestic violence, poverty, familial instability, neighbourhood environment, Jesus Christ, the peer pressure, other trauma events such as exposure to criminal violence, the loss of a loved one, or the natural disaster, experience of racism or other social and ethnic bias, cultural and religious influences, failure of government or social intervention, i.e. failure to intervene or provide necessary services, placements in poor quality foster care system, juvenile detention facilities, educational history, including achievement, performance, behaviour and activities, special educational needs, including cognitive limitations and learning disabilities, and opportunity or lack of thereof, and activities, military service, including length and type of service, conduct, special training, combat exposure, health and mental health services, employment and training history, including skills and performance and barriers of employability or culpability, prior juvenile and adult correctional experience, including conduct while under supervision, institutions of education and training, and regarding criminal services. Okay, none of this material is necessarily easy to procure. His most personal experiences may be extremely difficult for the client to discuss. Indeed, defense counsel must build a special rapport with his client for all proceedings. Oh my God. He is asking the client to trust counsel with his life. And even if, calling him a client, and even the information defense counsel can collect then requires the collection of corroborating information from multiple sources, a time-consuming task. Yeah, because if you ask for it, you get really negative response about it, to ensure the reliability and persuasiveness of the evidence. This is not a type of investigation that can wait until the week or then even a month before the trial. To the contrary, the very possibility of a penalty phase proceeding weighs heavily on defense counsel's preparations from the moment they began to work on the case. I shouldn't have took the case then. The mitigation investigation should begin as quickly as possible because it may affect the investigation of the first phase. Defenses, decisions about how the need for expert evaluations. Motion practices, the plea negotiations. The penalty phase is in that sense of misnomer for the defendant or not. He has yet been found guilty. The mitigation investigation furthermore runs in parallel with the many tasks of the defense counsel to prevent or prepare for the trial on the original charges. Discussing motion practice, negotiations with the prosecution, pleading, trial preparation, and jury selection. It is no surprise then that one study estimates that the average capital trial consumes nearly 1,900 hours of defense counsel time. Why is she bitching? Over the 16 times of average hours spent on a non-capital case. Yeah, Wow. That estimate itself is not an indictment of the capital punishment system. It reflects, in part, the extraordinary measure required to ensure a fair hearing for a defendant accused of a capital crime. However, the demands of the Capital Council becomes a constitutional problem when, as in Idaho, the state speedy trial requires hamstrings defense counsel's ability to commit the requisite time. The state, with its one hand, can dramatically escalate the demands on Mr. Kohberger and the defense counsel by noticing intent to seek death. Yet, with its other hand, it rigs the system so that it can ensure that the defense counsel cannot meet those demands or must counsel our client to give up his right to a speedy trial. Well, it's a few more days in court rather than going to a death penalty jail. I mean, what would you rather do? Wouldn't you rather that decision be made properly, you know? Idaho cannot force a defendant to choose between his rights. I'm just going to make a cigarette. I'm so sorry. I've just only got up and I wanted to read it out to you. So I hope you don't mind me smoking. I know it's a bad thing to do. I don't encourage it. Yeah, what do you guys think so far? I know I come across quite ditzy and stuff, but I know me shit, and I do know me shit. As just poor Tylee stays to me. I shouldn't have it like this, but I am messy cup drinker. Me Tylee and JJ cup from Difficult Research. Go and have a look at her channel if you've got time. Lovely lady. Yeah, I am pretty like what's the word, annoyed by the process myself, and I'm not even American. It's yeah. I mean, I know I'm not getting any people are watching me on their little thing and not going into and looking at my channel. That's fine, but just remember that this is court document. It's not me hearsaying and speculating. I'm not sure how many folks are aware that there's paperwork out on the case to be read out, and I'm just trying to do my bit. I don't have monetization on my channel. If you look, I don't get ads. I don't get nothing. You can watch this. There's no ads in the channel. I don't have any meat in the game. I don't have nothing in it. So by me reading this out, I just want to get bypass all the BS that's out there, and that way you've got a channel that you can come and get the information from. Who's took this? I can't imagine anybody's got the time to go out and look through the internet and find stuff like this. You know, I have my little ways. I notice some channels don't get to find the notes they need, and I do. But not on every case, you know. The Heuemann cases, there's a little on that. So we got to look at his history, his background, and things like that, because he will be getting the death penalty. You know, there's a high chance he is. I don't know what the death penalty is in Idaho. I don't know if that's lethal injection, or what. You know, please let me know in the comments, because it's interesting to me. There's a couple of times now that I've done this, and I've actually wished for the death penalty. So, and I believe in God, and I don't know what to make of that. I don't feel someone is right to take a life and get away with it. I do feel like they deserve to be let go of. They deserve the death penalty. You know, I don't know if people do it just for that sometimes. That's where you got to go to court, and the court are rightly so to do that, you know, to they don't want to be giving the death penalty to someone who wants it, you know. So I perfectly respect that. Yeah, we'll get back to it in a minute. But yeah, what I hope you don't mind me reading it out. I find giving evidence is easier when I'm reading it from documentation with the proof right in front of me. You know, I do like to discuss cases and do a little documentary in there, but I'm not good at editing, so I thought I'd do this live today. It will be a while I'll be on for, so don't worry if you don't catch it all. I'm not going to delete this one. I'm going to try and keep most of me content with my lives in, because a lot of it is evidence-based and informative, just informative to have. Sorry, I'm wearing my glasses. I've been up since 3, so I'm a bit tired. I don't sleep well. I smoke a little, but I don't see. I have a little bit in the morning, and when I don't really buy tobacco often, you know, cigarettes even, you know, but yeah, guys, don't smoke. I have a bad chest, I have bad asthma, hay fever, so I do sound a bit husky, and I'm sorry about that. Some people hate it, so I understand that you don't listen to my channel, but it's a very small price to pay for the truth. That's all. I just think there's too much out there that's getting fabricated, and I just don't like it, you know. Back to the court document anyway. Here we go, right? Yay. Where was I up to? The court also has authority to stay proceeds. I think that's to stay proceeds in the interest of justice. Stay proceedings in the interests of justice. I don't know what that means, I'm afraid. Sorry, I was reading what his rights are. As the first line of defence for individual liberties, this court foremost duty is to safeguard the rights of Idaho citizens and deliver remedies for the wrongs in the justice freely and without purchase, completely and without denial, promptly and without delay. Internal quotation marks omitted. Any number of remedies is available to the court through the use of its inherent powers of supervised cases. Among these powers is the ability to preclude prosecution and imposition of death penalty. The hallmark of such situations is that, although counsel is available to assist the accused during trial, the likelihood that any lawyer, even a fully competent one, could provide the effective assistance to a small that a presumption of prejudice is appropriate without inquiry into the actual conduct of the trial. In such cases, the defendant has been constructively denied his right to counsel and need not wait to assert his claim in post-conviction proceedings. For example, ineffective assistance of counsel claims based on allegations that the attorney is faced with a conflict of interest are routinely brought before the trial. What was a conflict of interest then? Did she work for his father or something? Don't know. It's bizarre. Did she have anything to do with him because he was a teacher or something? Was he a teacher? I can't remember now. Strange. The United States Supreme Court has had a few opportunities to opine on the full array of circumstances that give rise to presumptions of the prejudice, but it has applied that presumption when counsel has a definite conflict of interest with the defendant. Holloway Court explains that the presumption is necessary in such case because the prejudice inquiry would not be susceptible of intellect, even-handed application. Courts would face the intractable problem of identifying after the fact what counsel refrained from doing, both before and during the trial. Well, it's best to find out before it, isn't it, really, rather than, because of the record, an appeal really illuminates the reason for inaction, assessing the impact of the conflict of interests on the attorney's options, tactics, and decisions would be virtually impossible. It was a tactic. I mean, it's strange how these girls are thrown foods for the man, but the state courts have applied this wisdom to conflicts created by resource shortages. Shortages. I've got a little list. When states have failed to provide adequate funding to public defenders, courts have recognized this results in a conflict of interest is inevitably created. When a public defender's excessive caseload forces him to choose between the rights of the various indigent criminals he represents. Wow. Here, the choice of prosecution to seek the death penalty in conjunction with the requirements for the defense in a capital case, as required by Idaho, essentially forced Mr. Kohberger to abandon his right to a speedy trial. No, not at all. Courts in Idaho have long recognized that forcing citizens to choose between these rights is the same as depriving them of those rights. All right, okay. I don't know what page we're up to at the minute. 18. I've heard that word Hobson's choice before, and I'm trying to think where. It's probably this case, actually. So this, I'll be honest, a lot of this I'm failing to understand, but I will tell you that if I don't. I won't just make it up. I will tell you if I don't know. So I don't know what Hobson's choice is, I'm afraid. I'm reading through it, but yeah, just giving my eyes a break a minute. Hope everyone's well. What a way to start your bank holiday. Oh. But even if you just have me on the background while you're doing your work at home, or you're in work, or you're just chilling off, doing nothing really, but listening to me, I don't mind. You don't have to look at the screen. That's the beauty of this. You don't have to look at the screen to know what I'm reading out. And I hope my description, my telling you is coming across well. I know we're not solicitors, so it's pretty difficult, It's really sad to see one of the girls' fathers, I think it was Kaylee's father. It just breaks how strong that man is for what he's been through. It's like Sebastian as well. It's another case. I don't know how they do it. I'm so proud of them, as a human being. They carried themselves with such grace, considering all the bullshit out there, Kohberger to abandon his right to a speedy trial. Courts in Idaho have recognized this for instances between their rights of depriving them of rights. When the choice between testifying and giving up a benefit is applied to a situation in which the benefit to be gained is that afforded by another provision of the Bill of Rights. Okay, so he wants to testify in court. An undeniable tension is created. In the state of Idaho, may not force this Hobson's law on Mr. Kohberger. However, it did, and now the court has a waiver of a right based upon it. A waiver, however, must be voluntary. The court should indulge have a reasonable presumption against the waiver. Thus, this situation has created an undeniable tension within the case. I agree. Without question, the surest way to safeguard Kohberger's rights is to strike the death penalty and restore his right to a speedy trial. Striking the death penalty will balance Mr. Kohberger's right to an effective assistance of counsel with his rights to a speedy trial. Furthermore, the death penalty structure has the death penalty structure that violates the Constitution is, by its nature, unconstitutional. Idaho's system of obtaining death convictions is unconstitutional at this time. This was recently recognized. In that matter, in a case that they've mentioned here, right, to dismiss the death penalty in order to strike the notice of intent to seek the death penalty. In that matter, it was recognized that within the time limit required for a speedy trial, neither state nor defense could appropriately function and adjust to the outcome being reached. This is talking about another case. Conclusion. Based upon the foregoing argument to be presented at the hearing herein, the court respectfully requests to grant this motion. Now, we might have read this or heard this before, but the next bit you haven't. The state notice of intent to seek the death penalty be struck. That's A. The court. Oh, sorry, I'll read it again now. I'm mumbling, aren't I? Conclusion. Okay. Based upon the foregoing argument to be presented at the hearing hereon, this court is respectfully requested to grant this motion that A. The state's notice of intent to seek death penalty be struck. B. The court seat a jury which is not death qualified. What's that mean? C. So get someone who is who has worked in death penalties. How many people out there you think have? The court precludes the omission of any evidence of aggravating circumstances during the trial of this case, and D. The court not instruct the jury on any aggravated punishments. Dated this 4th day of September 2024. Now, I'm just thinking about what's said here in case. See, aggravating circumstances are important to hear. I mean, the fact that he struggled with a gun is important to hear. If that's found out later on and then put in, you as a jury needs to know what it is. Sorry, I think this is... I'll get it up anyway. I'll just have to look for it. This is telling us different court rulings, different... I mean, she really knows the law, But is she really looking at the picture, of the whole picture, you know? And what the court is saying is that, you know, I've got the right to a speedy trial. We've got enough evidence for that. But if you don't have one, we'd have to include the aggravating circumstances to the case. You know, that's what they don't want you to hear. That's what his solicitor doesn't want the public to hear. Or I don't know. That's how she's fighting it. Like, he's still, you know, he's got autism. He can't talk for himself and stuff like that, making him sound like incompetence, you know, of doing anything and getting around it that way. I mean, I've never seen it all printed out. That's pretty good. That's excellent. I wish I knew what law they're going to put into motion now. Well, that's that for now. Just go back to the Diddy stuff. I just wanted to alternate. So you had me read that out, and then I'll read some of the Diddy stuff out now. How long have I been on for? An hour and 30 minutes. Yeah, I'm sure as well, the trial, the Kohberger trial. But the Combs is today. Yeah, it goes on to talk about the superseding indictment. It goes on to talk in deep detail about how the network, the enterprise works, how you know, Combs subjected victims to emotional and physical and verbal abuse to cause the victims to engage in freak-offs and other commercial acts. Combs maintained control over the victims through, among other things, physical violence, promises of a career and financial opportunities, granting and threatening to withhold financial support, and by other coercive means, including tracking their whereabouts, dictating the victim's appearance, monitoring their medical records, controlling their housing, and supplying them with controlled substances. During and separate to the freak-offs and other commercial sex acts, Combs, among other things, hit and kicked and was violent towards her. The results often resulted in injuries that took days, weeks to heal. Following the assault, Combs, with the assistance, see, this is another one. Combs, well, I was going to say something important, and it's gone. So sorry. Gosh, I forgot. Because he paid Cassandra off, it doesn't mean that he can't be charged for racketeering and the RICO thing, because it doesn't mean because you've paid someone off, that's it. You know, you still committed a crime. You know. I'm just looking to see if there's anything I haven't already told you, which really isn't. I'm not going to pretend that people don't know what's what in the case, because it's really ran down our nose. I mean, in our faces, you know. Yeah, I mentioned here, I haven't mentioned before, he dangled a female over an apartment balcony like 17 floors up. I mean, wow, wow, poor girl. Now it goes into the racketeering. The kidnapping charge, taking girls from state to state and things like that. Multiple acts involving arson, chargeable under the following provisions of state law, of California law. See if it's committed in California. I'm just putting my signature on everything because, my paperwork goes on other people's sites, and I'm like, oh, go and find it your damn self. If I look for something and I don't find it and I use other person's work, I always give them a shout out, methamphetamine, I don't know what that is. All these drugs. Bromo, 2,5-deoxymoline, cocaine, oxycodone, alprazolam, hydroxybutyric acid, ketamine, Vaseline, methamphetamine, figured out. It was part of the conspiracy that Sean Combs, the defendant, agreed that the conspirator would commit at least 2 acts of racketeering actively in the conduct of the affairs of the Combs enterprise. Okay. You can read that without me if you want. I'm just going to look through it and hope you can see it well. It's all stuff we've heard about, really. We're on to count 2. I mean, he would force people to work for him, and any combination of such means would be used to cause the person to engage in commercial acts, and attempted and aided and abetted and willfully caused the same to it. Now listen, because someone's a sex worker does not mean that someone has the right to force them into labour that they don't want to do, or change. Everyone's got a right to change their mind, right? Yeah. These type of girls aren't respected. So can you imagine what he was like to these people? Do you think some of them may have been killed? I do. Yeah, I'm surprised further charges haven't been brought forward. Defendant knowingly transported individuals to interstate and foreign commerce with the intent that the individual engaged in prostitution and attempted, aided and abetted and willfully caused the same, to wit, Combs transported, aided and abetted and willfully caused transportation of multiple individuals, including but not limited to victim 1 and commercial sex workers, interstate and foreign commerce of multiple occasions with the intent to engage in prostitution. Count 4. The grand jury further charges, from at least in or about 2021. I'm still 20 years behind. Up and up to and including in or about 2024 in the Southern District of New York and elsewhere. Sean Combs, the defendant in the affecting interstate and foreign commerce, knowingly recruited, enticed and harbored, transported and provided, obtained and advertised, maintained, patronized and solicited by any means a person knowingly in a reckless disregard of the fact, means of force, threats and violence, fraud, coercion, as described in Title 18. Victim 2. Right, now we're talking about victim 2. Attempted and aided and abetted willfully caused victim 2 to engage in acts, knowingly and recklessly disregard the fact that victim 2 was engaging in acts as a result of force and fraud and coercion. What if she said no? Do you think would happen? That's what you have to think. Well, this man was really brutal with people, women and men. His power got him everywhere. Sorry, Mitchie. Forfeiture allegations. I don't know what forfeiture could be. In what sense? Because of what he gained, all his money, all his wealth will be under penalty now. I think that's basically what that's talking about. Seizing wealth and all that as a result of committing the offences alleged in count 2 and 4 and of this indictment. Sean Combs, the defendant, shall forfeit the United States, pursuant of Title 18, United States Code in Section 1594, any and all property, real and personal, involved, used, or intended to be used to commit or facilitate the commission of said offences, and any and all property traceable to such property, any property at all, real or personal, constituting or derived from the proceeds obtained directly and indirectly as a result of said offences, including but not limited to a sum of money in United States currency representing the amount of the property involved in said offences and proceeds traceable to the commission of the said offences. As a result of committing this offence, alleged in count 3 and 5 and this indictment, Sean Combs, the defendant, shall forfeit the United States pursuant to Title 18 United States Code, Section 2428, any and all property, real and personal, constituting or derived from proceeds obtained directly or indirectly as a result of said offences. Any and all property, real or personal, that was used or intended to be used, commit or facilitate the commission of said offences, and United States Section 981 and Title 28 United States Code, Section 2461, any and all property, real and personal, and that constitutes and derived from the proceeds traceable and the commission of said offences, including and not limited to a sum of money in United States currency representing the amount of proceeds traceable to the commission of said offences. Substitute assets provision. If any of the above described forfeitable property as a result of any act or omission of the defendant. Rightfully so. A cannot be located upon the still will be taken away from him if found. If properties have been hidden away from the court, they're going to be tracing them. B has been transferred or sold to or deposited with fair person. C has been placed beyond the jurisdiction of the court. D, so that doesn't matter either. D, even a substantially diminished in value, or E, has been commingled with other property which cannot be subdivided without difficulty. It is the intent of the United States, pursuant to Title 18 United States Code, and to seek forfeiture for any other property of the defendant up to the value of the above forfeitable property. Signed, Matthew Podolsky. I just wanted to give you a brief. You don't know much about what's going on. That's basically what's going on. I believe his witnesses, he's got like 5 witnesses who are sex workers for his defence. I don't know if that's true or not. And then recently his son's just been found out doing bad things. So yeah, it's all coming. Karma's coming through. So I'm quite happy about that. Okay. That's all I've got for that. But I think we'll watch what I was watching the other day on the Father, if I can get her up. Oh, I know. I was just going to look for a video recently on them. He did a real sweet interview with Banfield. This is it.
But sometimes in this process, our hearts just get broken all over again each time we learn something new. And so it is with the University of Idaho murders. Since the case moved to Boise with a different judge, we've seen a blizzard of unsealed, unredacted court filings and a regular supply of details and disclosures, even some bombshells.
I hope that was not mute.
And tonight, two absolutely stunning revelations about the surviving housemates texting and talking in the wee hours of November 13th, 2022. Also, a rare peek into some grand jury testimony, something we don't often get to see. We knew a roommate had texted an Uber driver just after 2 o'clock in the morning. That's about 2 hours before the murders happened. But now we know that she and three of her roommates, Bethany, Kaylee, and Maddie, all of whom had just arrived home from a night out, had actually contemplated going out again. The court document reads, and I quote, "At approximately 2 a.m., they met up in Kaylee's bedroom and talked for a while before going to bed. The fifth roommate, Xana Kernodle, who was out with her boyfriend, Ethan Chapin, was not home yet. The roommates debated going out to the food truck for late night snack, prompting Dylan to send a text at 2:10 a.m. to an Uber driver she knew to see if he was driving. Ultimately, however, the girls decided to just go to bed." Man, that brings to mind a lot of what ifs, doesn't it? What if they'd gone back out? What if they just decided, let's go, let's do it. It's 2 a.m. Let's go get more food. Might that have changed the course of history on that horrifying night? Of course, there is a good chance if they'd popped back out to that food trunk that they still would have been home before the knife-wielding intruder, allegedly Bryan Kohberger, broke in and killed Kaylee, Maddie, Xana, and Ethan. But we will never know. And that brings me to the second revelation. We knew about Dylan and Bethany's frantic text messaging between 4:22 a.m. and 4:26 a.m. when Dylan tells Bethany that nobody will answer their phones and that she's afraid because she saw someone in a ski mask. And we knew that Dylan then ran down to Bethany's room on the ground floor of the 3-level house. But the court documents now reveal a brand new fact that we never knew. And it is, honestly, it is something horrifying. Again, quoting Dylan. Dylan again tried calling Kaylee and Xana, but neither responded. Dylan then exited her room and began running towards Bethany's bedroom. On her way, she noticed Xana lying on the floor of her bedroom with her head towards the wall and her feet towards the door. Dylan thought Xana was drunk. Once Dylan arrived downstairs at Bethany's room, they locked the door and both made additional unanswered calls to the other roommates. Hours passed, and at 11:50 a.m. the next morning, 6 minutes before the 911 call that you have heard on this program, Dylan called her friends, Emily Allant and Hunter Johnson, because she was too afraid to go upstairs by herself. And the court filing reads, Emily and Hunter met Dylan and Bethany at the bottom floor of the house. Together, Dylan, Bethany, and Hunter started to walk up the stairs to the second floor. When they reached the second floor, Hunter went to the kitchen to grab a kitchen knife. Now, this next part is from Dylan's grand jury testimony. When Hunter came back out, Dylan said, quote, "She saw Xana again for a split second," and this is Dylan talking, "and just started bawling because she thought she had just I don't even know. I thought maybe she was still drunk and all asleep on the floor. Bethany also saw Xana lying on the floor." Hunter told Dylan and Bethany to, quote, get out. Emily, who had started up the stairs, also turned around after Hunter instructed her not to come any further. They both went outside shortly afterwards, and Hunter exited the house and then told them to call 911. He was pale, white, and mentioned something about someone being unconscious. You can hear a lot of that, you can hear a lot of it on the 911 call. We just envisioned that the banging and the calling out, Xana, Ethan, was at the bedroom door, but it may not have been. It may have been down the hall and around the corner at the stairs. This is where I'm going to stop and bring in Steve Gonzalez. Steve is Kaylee Gonzalez's father. He's been a regular guest on the program. Steve, these were details that I found astounding. They seemed to put into place more details of a very confusing picture of what happened that night. And I often stop and I think about you and the other parents, and whether you get a heads up that this stuff is coming, whether you have someone who sits down with you and goes through it and helps you to sort through it. How do you?
I was just watching the interview room with both the parents, Kaylee's parents, and I think that gag order is absolutely disgusting. It caused so many problems for the family and the people in the house.
How do you receive this kind of information?
We normally get an email beforehand. We work back and forth. I don't think either party really had an understanding of how to really construct something where you can share information, but not too much information. But the communication's gotten a lot better. I've really grew to like these guys. I mean, I really care about that those people and all the work that they've done. So I think they've always tried to work towards communication, but I'm sure they're very busy, and it's not easy to always remember to keep us in the loop.
I think the defense have really made it very difficult for this trial, and for evidence as well,
It was a surprise to me, Steve, to hear this detail that Bethany got a glimpse down the hall of what now appears to be Xana's open bedroom door, and Xana lying inside that bedroom door, and ran downstairs to Bethany's room. And then at one point, Bethany also saw that same image. But it's sort of just, it's flummoxing to think that they called friends, they called 911 before anybody sort of went to investigate what was happening in that bedroom with the door now.
I think possibly they just had no idea what happened the night before. Terrified of knowing the truth, perhaps. Subconscious level, protecting yourself. They chose to engage with their friends to help,
Now open. We always assumed that it was closed and they couldn't get past it.
Yeah, that's definitely a puzzling part of it. But
assumptions about these two girls has been disgusting, to be fair.
I always assume, you have somebody who's scared, girl, slightly, intoxicated. My own daughter, when my son was playing a prank on her, acting like he was being attacked, him and his mom, Kaylee ran upstairs and hid under the bed and called me at work. So when people are scared, they're young. They don't think the same way as a grown adult does. And I think they were just thinking that something bad had happened, but they didn't want to believe it. They weren't really prepared to mentally accept what was happening. And I totally understand that, because it's not something that we're used to in Idaho. It's not something that is common. It's not even, it's just unheard of. So I chalk it up to that. And I know that there's a lot of forensic, and there's a lot, these girls had their phones on. I already said way back in the day that you could tell when they went up the stairs and downstairs. This is all laid out. Every step has been retraced. So It didn't make a difference in the bigger picture. And I've always said that there could be blessings for late calls as well too.
Yeah. It's also just so jarring to get the detail that the girls were all together up in your daughter's room, chatting about, let's all go out again, 2:00 in the morning, let's go back to the food truck. And I'm not sure if you heard how I laid it out at the top of the show, but all I can think of is the what ifs if they had actually decided to go. And I'm wondering how you're processing that information.
I knew a little bit of the details about that. I don't even talk about some of it just because I don't want to hurt some of the people, that are involved in this. If, certain people would have got picked up phones, all those type of things, those are what ifs. But I think what it really goes to your audience is these girls were best friends. And even the last moments of my daughter and Maddie's, they were surrounded with friends and they were in their beds. So just keep that in mind, because there's going to be probably some people are going to try to drag these surviving people through the mud. And up to their very last moments, they were hanging out with these, the people who passed away, planning on doing something fun. And my daughter came down there to hang out with one of those girls. And that's the reality of it. That's the truth of it, not some of the speculation that you're going to eventually hear about.
Yeah, and shame on those who have cast aspersions on these two surviving roommates who have been to hell and back. They're still there. They're not back. And how anyone could set upon them with ridiculous conspiracy theories is beyond the pale. There was something that you mentioned, I think a couple of days ago in an interview that sort of stood out to me. And that was that I think you had a chance to speak with the coroner and got a detail about one of the injuries that your daughter suffered at the hands of this killer. I think it was a punch to the face. Can you tell me what it is that you learned?
I don't go into all the details.
This is the critical point of what I was talking about. I hope this is being recorded on my channel. But yeah, listen to what he says.
On it because I want the court to bring it out. I want them to do it. But yes, I feel 2.5 years. The defense has a strategy to have everybody forget. And I'm here to make sure they don't forget.
Yeah.
So when I do have to let stuff out, it's because I don't want people to forget that we have a monster. And yes, he one of the girls was a little more intoxicated. He was able to go after that. Maddie May first. And my daughter woke up and he struck her multiple times and broke her nose. And and there's a little bit more details to that, but I leave that to them in case that's something pertinent for them to know and to let them release it.
So that's what I was pointing out to you about the gun. He can't say much more. He doesn't say much more than that. I get upset. So my heart really does go out to the family. It's really bad press out there, and I'm not sure if people can see my film right at the minute, but I haven't got my phone to access. So that's all for today. I might be a bit back on later with the Heuemann murdering article. Take care, everyone. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.